you, Carol. Thank you. I'm glad to be here with you to talk about children. God has given us the most important task that could possibly be given to anyone when He allows us to be a parent. And along the way of being a parent, we experience sometimes great joy and great difficulty. And I'd like to share with you some things that I've learned in the process of being a parent that perhaps will make some of those difficult moments a little less bumpy for you. If we can just notice what children notice in their world, I think it will help us to understand why they tend to be less than perfect. Children have an uncanny ability to get our attention. My wife and I, for about 14 years, have taught in the singles department in my church, and I have learned so much about single parenting from those individuals as they have shared their lives with us. Recently, a single mom was sharing with me an experience with her 7-year-old son, Bobby. She was walking down the hallway of her home one afternoon and walked past the bathroom. There's Bobby in the bathroom bandaging his finger. Blood's running down his hand. She rushed into the bathroom and said, "Bobby, honey, what happened?" He said, "I smashed my finger with the hammer." She said, "I didn't hear you crying." He said, "I didn't know you were home." They know when it's important to get our attention and how to get our attention. I have several rules of thumb that I want to share with you. And the first one is, the most important thing may not be what you do, but what you do after what you have done. Ponder that. I am not a perfect parent. Let me show you how that rule of thumb works. I came home one afternoon from work. It had been a terribly long day. A number of things had gone wrong. When I got home, my wife had headed up to here with our 5-year-old daughter. And in about 30 minutes, I had headed up to here with our 5-year-old daughter, too. And the next thing I knew, I was yelling at my 5-year-old daughter. I have never stood before a group of parents and said to them, "Now go home and yell at your children. It's good for them." I've never done that. But here I was doing that, violating something I believe in. And a few minutes later, the next thing I know, I not only am yelling at her, but I'm threatening her. "If you don't stop that, I will." I've never suggested that parents do that sort of thing, and here I was doing it. But I don't believe that that was the most important thing that happened in my interaction in our relationship that day. I think the most important thing that happened in my relationship with my daughter that day was what I did a couple of hours later when I'm sitting on the side of her bed tucking her in for the night. And I'm saying to her, "Carla, this afternoon, when I yelled at you, I shouldn't have done that. I know better. But Carla, at that moment, I was so angry at you, I couldn't think of anything else to do, so I just yelled at you." And my 5-year-old daughter's lying there taking all of this in. When I finished, my 5-year-old daughter said, "Daddy, you could have said, 'I'm mad at you,'" which is what I teach. And I had to be reminded of that by a 5-year-old. Now, look at that scene and think, what did my daughter learn that was important that day? I think she learned some really important lessons about a relationship. I think one lesson she learned is you can recover a relationship, because I had broken our relationship that afternoon. Therefore, I'm responsible for reconnecting with my daughter, for reestablishing that relationship. And I did that, or at least began the process of it. I think she also learned an important lesson about admitting that you've made a mistake. How else will our children learn these important things if they don't experience them from us? I think she learned it's okay to admit you made a mistake. But maybe the most important thing that she learned was that I loved her enough to admit those things. And I loved her enough to rebuild the relationship that I had broken. I can't always be present with my children to ensure that they will make the right decision. So let me share with you how to work on that. And this is my Oreo cookie theory. It came about when my oldest daughter was 3 years of age. We were visiting in my parents' home in Oklahoma. It was 9:30 at night. Out of the kitchen, into the front room where we were visiting, came my 3-year-old daughter. Now, I just told you something really important about me. It's 9:30 at night. She's 3 years old. A 3-year-old should not be allowed to be up at 9:30 at night. You see, folks, I'm just like the rest of you. I don't always do all the good things that I know how to do, but I have learned to live with that rule of thumb that the most important thing may not be what I do, but what I do after what I have done. I make mistakes, just like you do. Well, here came my 3-year-old daughter out of the kitchen, clutching Oreo cookies to her tummy. One look at her, and it was quickly apparent to me a 3-year-old should not be allowed to consume 37 Oreo cookies on her way to bed. And I'm just about to say to her, Kimberly, go put the cookies back, but no words came out of my mouth. Instead, there was this intervening thought, and the thought was, Gary, do you realize her entire life you have been telling her what to do? When will she ever learn what it feels like to make a choice? When will she ever learn what responsibility feels like if you keep telling her just exactly what to do? So I said to her, before I tell you what I said to her, there is a rule of thumb that goes with the Oreo cookie theory. And the rule of thumb is you give choices commensurate with the child's ability to respond responsibly. Don't write that down. Here's what that means. You give big choices to big kids. You give little choices to little kids. You don't give big choices to little children. Too much responsibility. This won't seem like much of a choice to you that I gave my 3-year-old daughter, but you must remember, it's the first choice I had ever given her in her entire life. Here she comes across the floor into the living room there, and I said to her, Kimberly, you may choose to keep one of the cookies to eat and put the rest back, or you may choose to put all the cookies back. Which do you choose to do? Stopped her dead in her tracks. She has a choice to process. And I knew she was processing the choice because I was watching her eyes. Have you ever watched toddlers? They think they can see in their minds. She's working this choice over. And she went back out in the kitchen and she came out with one Oreo cookie in her hand. And my Oreo cookie theory was born right on the spot. And I've been perfecting it ever since. Now, you could say, yes, Gary, but what if she had insisted on 2 Oreo cookies to eat? Folks, the beauty of choice giving is you fall back on the choice. I'm sorry, I know you'd like to have 2 cookies to eat, but that's not a part of the choice. The choices are, you may choose to keep 1 cookie to eat and put the rest back, or you may choose to put all the cookies back. Which do you choose? Folks, it doesn't work if there's not the word choose in there. Let me show you how this works in life. When that same daughter was now 9 years of age, she has a sister now, 6 years old. We're driving along in my automobile. There's this huge, major battle going on in the back seat of my car. I think my daughters had agreed among themselves. Never fight until you're riding in the back seat of the car when Dad is driving. Save all battles for that. My daughters are yelling, screaming, pulling hair in the back seat of my car. It's awful. I'm getting very angry. I'm gripping the steering wheel. It's not safe for me to drive like that. My first thought was, I'm going to pull over to the side of this road. I'm going to get out. I'm going to find the biggest fence post I can find. I'm going to drag it over here. I'm going to beat both of them half to death. They will never fight in the back seat of my car again. And then I had this intervening thought. I'm so glad God gives me intervening thoughts, aren't you? And the thought was, yes, Gary, you could do that, but what will they have learned? And I quickly realized, they will have learned, go as far as you want to go, be as out of control as you want to be. Dad will finally stop you when it gets to be too much. You don't have to control yourself. He will control you. And I thought, I don't want that for my daughters. So I pulled over to the side of the road. I turned the key off. That's a good sign we're going to be here a while. Folks, if it's important, we should take time for it. I turned and I said to my daughters, girls, we are about to institute a new and significant policy within the confines of this automobile. I got their attention. Just an aside, folks. Use big words to get your children's attention. Make them up. You don't have to know how to spell them. We were in the pizza place. We used to go to the pizza place a lot. I'll come back to my Oreo cookie theory. We used to go to the pizza place a lot when my children were younger because quite by accident we discovered some of our most important family discussions took place in the pizza place. At home, we would finish eating and everybody scatters like quail. Got something to do, homework to do, or go across the street and play. But have you noticed when you go out to eat, nobody leaves until everybody leaves? You're there together. And these wonderful family discussions would emerge in the pizza place. I've also observed that in the pizza place there, at least the ones we frequented, there were these electronic mechanisms, games. It's kind of like the Las Vegas syndrome. You know, if you've got money in your pocket, you're supposed to put it in these machines. They're everywhere. And my son is into those electronic games. He was about 6 years old at the time. We're eating, and he's standing there wanting quarters to put in this electronic game. And I turned to him and I said, Craig, son, when we come to the pizza establishment, we come to partake of the food they provide, not to engage in the manipulation of mechanical mechanisms. I got his attention. He just sort of wandered off with this glaze on his face. That was one reaction. The other reaction was two guys in a booth next to me just cracked up. I know they thought that I was a nut, but that's okay. I got my son's attention. I have used that expression in the car in other places enough times that my children can quote it verbatim. Girls, we are about to institute a new and significant policy in this automobile. And the policy is, when you choose to fight in the back seat of this car, you choose to give up TV for the day. My daughters were really into TV. It was important to them. Not that they watched 5 or 6 hours a day like many children do, but they did get to watch an hour a day. So that's why I'm using that. When you choose to fight in the back seat of this car, you choose to give up TV for that day. When you choose not to fight in the back seat of this car, you choose to get to watch TV that day. How many times did I use the word choose? 4 times. It's clear where the responsibility is being placed. When you choose. I went through that 3 times because I wanted to make sure they understood what the choices were. I started the car. I drove 5 blocks. The fight started again. Folks, I was almost proud of myself. With great calmness, I turned and said, girls, I see you've chosen to give up TV for the rest of the day. You would have thought I had dumped ice water on them. It just shut everything down. They were suddenly calm and quiet. Not only that, they were calm and quiet all the way home. And we were a long way from home. And when we drove into the garage, my girls said, what? Can we watch TV? Because we've been good all the way home. It's universal, folks. All children say those kinds of things. They don't have to be taught that. That they just know innately. Do we get to watch TV now? Because we've been good all the way home. To which I said, I know you'd like to watch your favorite TV program, but girls, the very moment you chose to fight in the back seat of this car, at that very moment, you chose to give up TV for today. Cry loudly. You would have thought the world was coming to an end. Would you believe, they did not watch TV, folks. Would you believe my daughters chose to give up TV 9 days in a row? Do you realize how I'm able to stand before you and say that? I don't have to say, would you believe I had to take TV away from my kids 9 days in a row? I didn't. I would have chosen for them to get to watch TV. They chose to give up TV 9 days in a row. And then a marvelous thing began to happen in the back seat of my automobile. A fight would start, one would start punching the other, or say something, or look at them, or breathe on them. And the other would say, stop that, you're going to cause us to have to choose to give up TV today. They